Thank you for tuning in to the Cannabis Currency podcast, sponsored by publiclytradedpodcasts.com. Cannabis Currency provides companies an outlet to share valuable information with a focus on CBD, hemp, and cannabis markets. From testing laboratories to full-scale hemp farming, agricultural, nutraceutical, and pharmaceutical development and production, ancillary businesses and consultants, medicinal and recreational dispensaries, oils, edibles, infused beverages, and more. Cannabis Currency brings to the forefront publicly traded companies on the cutting edge to help heighten your awareness in an ever-expanding market. Here's your host, Marcus Heatherly.
On today's episode of Cannabis Currency, we're excited to spotlight James E. Wagner Cultivation Corp. They're trading on the TSX Venture under the ticker symbol JWCA and on the OTCQX under the ticker symbol JWCAF. JWC is a family company founded on family values with industry-leading technology and a passion for quality. James E. Wagner Cultivation is committed to setting the standard for clean, consistent, aeroponically grown cannabis. Their GrowthSTORM dual droplet technology is helping to blaze a trail worldwide for themselves and other cultivators in the industry, setting the scene for exponential growth. With us today, we're excited to have him as their CEO, Mr. Nathan Woodworth. Mr. Woodworth, welcome to Cannabis Currency.
Hi there. Thanks very much for having me.
For those that are unaware, Mr. Woodworth has been both a patient and a grower for many years now. He originally started out under the MMAR Collective of Patients and Growers, and it's that experience and research that helped lead to the development of their proprietary aeroponic production platform that uses modern technology to maximize cultivation. Mr. Wagner, if you could please tell our Cannabis Currency listeners a bit about your personal business background and your work at James E. Wagner Cultivation Corp.
Absolutely. My experience in business has really been a story of organic growth. I did begin in this industry as a patient, a cannabis patient. I have a condition, severe chronic migraines, and I used cannabis to treat my migraines. And of course, because cannabis is quite expensive, I began growing my own under the MMAR, and that is what led me toward a passion for the industry. My family and I founded a collective, and through that collective, we began to research the best methodologies for producing clean, consistent cannabis. We recognized that as a medicine, cannabis needs to be at its best in order to help people in the best possible way. And so we did pursue a huge variety of different cultivation techniques, and that led us to understand that aeroponics was, bar none, the best way to control the total cultivation process, which is how we came about developing the GrowthSTORM aeroponic technology, which is specifically engineered for cannabis to meet the demands of cannabis as a crop. When they announced the MMPR, which was the original commercial cannabis production regulations here in Canada, at first we were taken aback because we had a lot of work going under the MMAR, but we very soon realized that it was an opportunity for us to pivot and to bring our technology to the commercial production of cannabis. We began that journey in 2012 when they announced the regulations, and 5 years later in 2017 we finally got our license to cultivate at our pilot facility. Since then, it's been a journey of constant growth and learning. We now have our full-scale facility. Within a matter of a month and a half, we will have 50,000 square feet of flowering space and be capable of producing almost 10,000 kilos of dried cannabis every year. At this point, we have almost 130 employees and are continuing our exponential growth.
That's exciting. Exciting that you have been growing steadily, and it seems like going exponentially forward. Can you go into more detail, please, about your GrowthSTORM platform and the expanding market for its use worldwide?
Absolutely. For those who aren't aware, aeroponics is a method whereby the roots of a plant hang suspended in the air and then are misted with a proprietary nutrient solution. And I say a proprietary nutrient solution because aeroponics is a very difficult type of cultivation to master. There are a lot of variables, and the nutrient mix that you use and the way that you distribute it are really key to success. And what we've done with GrowthSTORM is for years we have been designing our own equipment in order to handle the root structure, the plant morphology, the nutrient demand, and the overall chemical profile of the plant cannabis. Now, cannabis is a little bit different than a lot of other crops that are out there being grown right now. A tomato has 20 to 30 terpenes and flavonoids, the chemicals that give all food their flavor. But cannabis has been tested as having over 230 of these chemicals. Meanwhile, it has over 140 active phytocannabinoids. So this is a plant that is an order of magnitude more chemically complex than many traditional food crops, and as a result, it needs that additional control. GrowthSTORM consists of our main aeroponic platform, all of the integrated technologies that go into building our world-class grow rooms, and all of the software required to support that process and make it achievable by growers worldwide. We can then take all of that whole package that we have developed and license it to other companies anywhere in the world so that they can, out of the box, do what we do, grow some of the cleanest, most consistent, aeroponically grown cannabis anywhere.
And then so that is a full system when you're talking about everything from the lighting down to the chemicals used as far as the GrowthSTORM?
Well, we don't supply the facility infrastructure as a part of the technology itself,
Sure.
But we do offer consultation to help people make the right decisions in that regard.
Yes.
There are dozens of different lights out there that can do the work. Not all of them are created equal. They come with different benefits and drawbacks. And of course, you have to account for those benefits and drawback in the design of your facility. So we do play a large role in helping other companies design their facilities. Certain elements will travel with our technology, like for instance, the main controller in our primary logic controllers, the PLCs that run our facilities. But the PLC itself is primarily about the electrical standards where we are shipping it. One of our partners in South Africa faces a unique set of electrical challenges because there they use 50 hertz power, whereas of course we use 60 hertz. So we're able to provide the controllers, but we don't interfere in their selection of lights other than to provide our own knowledge and experience-based advice.
Sure. So you guys then provide the technology and then also consult as far as best practices in using that technology for the companies. That's great customer service. Let's go into more details about your production capacity if we can. Recently, back on August 6th, you guys came out with news in regards to increasing capacity at your JWC2 flagship facility. If you could just talk in more detail about your overall yield projections at both of your facilities.
Well, my grandfather was a farmer, and so, of course, we don't like to be too aggressive in predicting the way that our performance is going to play out. That's the way you lose the farm. Mm-hmm. So we tried to follow those best practices, and we made our original yield projections based on a 6 to 12 month aggregate average performance, which is a very sound way to predict what our future performance will be. The interesting thing is that as we have developed and even as we moved into our new facility, all of the small improvements that we've made in process and design, all of the just small variations that have accrued over time, resulted in a significant increase in yield per square foot of almost 30%. So when you consider the way that plays out, we now predict based on an average which considers a much higher total level of achievement, which is why we increased our likely output for this facility from 30,000 kilos a year to 35,000 kilos a year. The interesting thing, of course, is that at this point we begin to see a trend in the way that our yields are playing out. We don't know where that curve ends, and we could continue to push those boundaries. Aeroponics allows us to test the chemical content of the plant, to fine-tune our nutrients and environmental controls so that we can get every last bit of performance out of that system. So there's a long way to go. I like to describe perfection as a mirage. We move toward it, and it moves further from us. And so we're constantly trying to perfect our system, and we're going to constantly get better and better without ever knowing exactly where the limits are.
With us today, folks, you're listening to Mr. Nathan Woodworth. He is the CEO of James E. Wagner Cultivation Corp. They're on the OTCQX under the ticker symbol JWCAF and on the TSX Venture Exchange under the ticker symbol JWCA. Mr. Woodworth is a patient, a grower. He's also an active CEO. And if you listen to what he just said, He understands the concept of paying attention to the smallest of details because that will help to achieve even greater results. Mr. Woodworth, recently in August, at the end of August there on the 26th, you guys released your third quarter 2019 financial results. If you could please talk about the increased revenues and some of the operational highlights and what that means to your company moving forward.
Absolutely happy to. We released our most recent quarterly results, and that showed the beginning of production here at our new flagship facility, which we call JWC2. Previous to that, we had been bearing the burden of ramp up in preparation for making the move, which increased our expense profile to the point that it is maintaining relatively steady as we ramp up into this facility. However, we weren't producing product to match that level of expense, and this is a problem that many cannabis companies face. The difference with JWC is that we are extremely focused on cultivation, which means that we are not spending a lot of money in many other areas. As a result, in the recent quarter, in comparison to the quarter before that, our total net comprehensive loss fell from about $2.8 million down to about $400,000, which means that we have every expectation that in the current quarter, we are going to be operating in a net profitable fashion, producing more value than our operating expenses and other outgoing cash flow represent, which is a tremendously positive place to be at, considering in terms of flowering space, at that point for the current quarter, we are growing in only about 15% of what we will be at our total maximum capacity. So gross margins and net profitability are expected to continue to rise. In the next quarter, as we complete the final licensing of our Phase 2 grow rooms, we are going to reach about 50,000 square feet of active flowering space, which will allow us to reach approximately 30% of our total active cultivation capacity at JWC2. And at that point, we will be revenue positive. We will be pushing more cannabis out than our operating expenses. In the following quarter, as we begin to see cash flow from all of that product being sent out into the world, we will be cash flow positive, and we expect that to be cash flow positive to a high degree. This is a short transition period for us because we have been preparing for this ramp up for quite some time, and it gives us the ability to pivot from a company which has been getting ready for the big game to a company that is winning the big game.
I think that was very well said. It's been great to have you on today. Folks, if you have not taken a look at them, do so now. They're going upward. Look at the details. Do your due diligence. This is definitely a great long-term play where they're currently valued. James E. Wagner Cultivation Corp on the OTCQX under the ticker symbol JWCAF and on the Venture Exchange under the ticker symbol JWCA. Mr. Woodworth, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for coming on. Hopefully you'll become a regular and come back on maybe 90 days or so and give us an update. Appreciate your time today.
Perfect. Thanks very much for having me.
This audio interview was entirely sponsored and produced by Publicly Traded Podcasts, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided in this audio interview are those of the guests and those of the respective companies that they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the team or management of Publicly Traded Podcasts. All listeners of this audio interview are encouraged to do their due diligence and research when planning and executing investment strategies. We strongly recommend seeking the assistance of an investment professional. The guests interviewed may have paid for an extended audio distribution package and are in no way affiliated with Publicly Traded Podcasts or their audio distribution partners.